Well, we'll turn the program to Boulder County and to Sally and JD. And I just wanted to give you a quick update. As of this afternoon, we have received checks in the amount of $30,300. And that number is growing. We've had a number of contacts. Vicki alluded to this as far as the support from around the country, but from places as far away as Vermont, clubs have contacted Bev, getting information of where to send the money, and as far west as the Pacific Northwest. And of course, as many of you remember, we sent money to the Pacific Northwest, Southern Oregon, a couple of years ago to help those people get reestablished. And so Rotarians don't forget. And so we're all in this together and to support us. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sally Brown. Sally made a few comments earlier, but she's past president of the Boulder Club. And at the Boulder Club, when there's a disaster, as we've had with these fires, she's in the position as past president to take over disaster relief. And we also have JD Crones with us. And JD is the new co-chair for the Natural Disaster Response Committee in the district. And so he took over the position from Peter Van Arsdale, who left that position December 30th. So without further ado, Sally and JD, I'd like to turn it over to you to give us an update on what's going on in Boulder.
Thank you, District Governor. JD, if you would like to share your screen.
Yeah. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Governor. And slideshow.
All right. So what we planned for you today was a summary of the Marshall Fire and what's currently happening, lessons learned from the East Troublesome Fire, the current assistance that's out there, and then recommendations from the committee of Natural Disaster Response Committee. Okay, so these pictures really don't even do it justice. I drove through there this weekend and I was sobbing just seeing the total devastation of places that I have passed hundreds of times shopping and driving through, and I just can't even imagine what all of these poor families are dealing with. We have a very close friend who lost her home, and we were doing a food train, and we're over there Saturday while the insurance adjuster was there, and you know, to see like they just really have trauma brain. So, you know, I think they're living day by day and just trying to get through everything, trying to stay happy for their children, trying to stay excited for, you know, so that home isn't a horrible place to be. And it's just really struck me as that these pictures don't really do it justice. So the Marshall Fire did destroy 1,084 homes, and it now exceeds more than $500 million in damage, and is the most destructive wildfire in Colorado history. Let me go ahead. So there are 553 homes destroyed in Louisville and 45 damaged, 332 destroyed in Superior, 60 damaged, and 106 homes destroyed in unincorporated Boulder County with 22 damaged. We have one person dead and still 2 missing. And there are so many, this number still isn't even right because there are so many houses that just are the only house standing in their neighborhood. And they still don't have, you know, power or ability to stay in that house. They may have their house, but it really isn't a functional house at this point. And so what that means is that 35,000 people have lost their homes. This is a picture of Governor Polis, and he came to visit the YMCA shelter. And I have to tell you, the Y is doing an amazing job. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And then there were 19 businesses destroyed or damaged. And this was a restaurant that I thought you guys should all see. It was called the Rotary Restaurant, and it was getting set to open. It was brand new. And so I was excited about, oh, hey, there's this restaurant called the Rotary, but we'll have to wait a while to see what they were going to bring. But so people are out of jobs as well. So I thought this was, a good way to talk about Rotary. It's the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing, and we are people of action. So here we are all together trying to figure out what we can do. And many hands will make light work. So here we are with many hands. So the government has been out. The president has been here, Jonah Goose, our congressman, and bringing FEMA in to start the work of putting together a disaster assistance center. And that's over here in Lafayette. And at that disaster assistance center, there is FEMA, there's a Precious Child, there's legal assistance, and the community foundation is there. And they currently have $21 million raised, and they're distributing that. They have distributed 3.8 million so far of its initial 5 million that they have released, and they have identified 18-person committee that's looking at the distribution for short and long-term needs. So at the distribution center, the YMCA, which was doing the shelter, is there taking care of the children. So if you can imagine, you've lost your home and you're just trying to hold yourself together for your kids, and then you've got to go and fill out all these FEMA paperwork. You got to show everybody your insurance. You've got to do all this heavy brain work when you're really, really taxed. They are taking care of the kids and taking them off to the side so they can play and just be kids, and they don't have to be part of this really formal process that their parents have to go through. And then also, just take that off of their parents, so the parents don't have to watch their kids while they're trying to dig out their insurance paperwork and such. So they are doing that right now, and it's about $3,000 a week on the Y is donating that and taking care of the kids that way. And then of course, Rotary, we came and helped with the shelter in a very small way so far. We've just donated 2 pallets of water to the shelter while there were people still at the Y. The good news is that everybody has some type of shelter, whether or not that means they're in a hotel or a short-term living situation looking for longer-term ones, but nobody is in a shelter anymore. So I thought that was really good news to share. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to JD.
Thank you, Sally. And thank you everyone for having us and crashing your meeting, your mid-year meeting. This is an important lesson for us because most of the committee and a significant part of the district went through a wildfire just last year, the East Troublesome Fire over in Grand County. It spread out of Grand County, but that's where the communities were centered. The recovery process is still ongoing in the East Troublesome area, primarily around Grand Lake. But even though it's still ongoing, after a year, we have learned some good lessons. The 2 main ones, the long-term and on the ground, and the distribution of funds. Long-term and on the ground, as I prepared to enter this committee, I did ask a bunch of the local philanthropists and other nonprofits that help with this if they knew about the Rotary work and what they thought about it. And the most frequent comment was that Rotary focuses on the long term. As Sally said, a lot of the immediate needs, the emergency needs in the Boulder area have been taken care of. The news cycle, unfortunately, will move on, but this is our chance not to. And we can really dig in the Boulder area and continue this great work. The distribution of funds is something that I think we can work on. And as I'm also involved in the Grand Lake work, I see this as well. That there are competing funding sources, and we're seeing that in Boulder. Sally echoed a number in the millions that has been raised by different groups. This is an opportunity for us at Rotary to look at projects that aren't being taken care of or are underfunded because there is so much other funding out there. It frankly might not be worth piling on when there are gaps to be had or gaps to be seen. The other 2 points, available funding versus project need. We have projects going on here in Grand County that do need funding that aren't being done, and then projects that are being done that don't need any more funding. So that's part of it. And then the variety of projects might not be obvious. Whoa, sorry, I got a gate crasher. And he advanced the slide. So our recommendations from the committee come in two forms: childcare and families, and insurance. I'll actually start with the insurance because that is, there are people already moving to enact these webinars and other classes. What we learned in East Troublesome and what we're seeing in Boulder is that there is a severe lack of education about insurance. And I can speak personally about this. I was affected by the East Troublesome fire and really had to have my hand held in the early part of the insurance process. The other part is explanation of terms. Even if you understand what all the pots of money are, you might not really grasp what falls under them, and that's important. For childcare and families, Sally did mention the YMCA. They have childcare efforts with the Disaster Assistance Center. That is an opportunity for us to help out. And then one idea that came up in last week's meeting was summer camp scholarships for children displaced by the fire. That is a great opportunity for the district and for Rotarians everywhere to really pitch in that way to help these families out. And then lastly is aid for senior citizens. That is something that we're seeing that needs to be had. Some of it is already being done, but another opportunity for us. So thank you for having us again. I hope that, my cat notwithstanding, this was an educational and an engaging presentation. And I believe, Governor Ray, that we do have some time if there's a discussion. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Can't get through a meeting without that. Any questions for Sally or JD?
Ray, this is TJ Carney. I'm the president-elect at Mountain Foothills. JD, the specific things that you identified in terms of moving forward, specifically insurance and then like childcare, how are those being organized and where do people go if they want to help?
Sure. I could speak generally, but Sally, do you have specific indications since she's on the ground there?
Sure. If you want to volunteer at the Disaster Assistance Center, you can do that through the, there's a community link that I can send out to everybody to sign up for times to volunteer. And you would just sign up through them. It's not through Rotary directly.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to have that link.
Yeah, Sally, if you can send me that, I
Okay.
will share that out. That would be, and we can also add it to the website where people can go and see that. That would be great.
Time for one more question?
Anyone?
No?
Hi,
I
this
have
is Annalee Noble from Denver Mile High, incoming president-elect. I have a very basic question. I think Sally, you or JD mentioned that there was one house standing in a neighborhood completely destroyed. How does that happen? And can we learn from the structure that survived how to build homes better?
I can answer that. That fire is a relentless and impossible to understand entity. Fire, especially at the size that it happened in Boulder and in East Troublesome, creates its own weather. And so, right, fire needs wind and it needs oxygen and it needs fuel, the plants on the ground. And at the moment it gets that, it starts to move on its own. Whether, you know, in my community, for example, the fire skipped over a house. It burned on both sides and we know the direction of the fire. And all that mattered was the position of the house, the proximity to it, what the wind was doing. All of us were fairly fire-wise in our gardening and our landscaping, and we were still hit very hard. So fire is really quite the inconceivable force. And there's nothing significant we could learn from frankly, a random suburban home that happened to survive. What we can learn from is in Northern California, they're building out of steel and concrete. So that might help.
Thanks, JD.
Yeah.